Hi everyone, and welcome to my review of Police Academy 7 Mission to Moscow. Now, this film came out in 1994 and it's directed by Alan Mehta. Now, I've been reviewing the Police Academy films on my channel. Got to start with one, which I thought was a great comedy, an absolute classic for me. Highly underrated film, and it's on my favourite films list of all time. Favourite films of all time list, I think 2 and 3 were worthy sequels, and especially 3, I really like that again. After that, started taking a massive dip. 4, as I've said, is very bad. 5 was awful, and I did not, you wouldn't imagine another film in the series to top that film. 6 was a bit better than 4 and 5, but it's still a bad film. Just not awful in that sense. And I was not looking forward to reviewing Police Academy 7. It was a film. It was one of the 3 films. I hated 5, 6, and 7 as a kid, and I didn't think too much of 4 actually. Police Academy 1 was the one I always watched like over and over, and I absolutely loved. Really, but yeah, I remember seeing Police Academy 7 only once, I think, all the way through, and I absolutely hated it. This is known as one of the worst films of all time, and it's on this. It's part of this set, a box set that I've got on Blu-ray, and it came in 1994, which is as another sign, because a lot of franchises that have films or trilogies or whatever, have films that come, a lot later on than for example, The Godfather 1 and 2, they were 2 years apart, them 2 films. Then The Godfather 3 comes, 1990, and it was a lot worse. I don't remember how bad that film was, but it's obviously known as good. Lethal Weapon as well. Lethal Weapon 4 was easily the weakest for me. You've got loads of cases of this happening with franchises and trilogies, where the one that comes, many years later, is the one that turns out not good. It seems like there was no point in making it. Why did they return? I didn't. I've said before, I didn't think a Police Academy film would be. It's hard to believe that it would be worse than 5, but I did think this would be worse. I thought, what rating will I give it? Could it be in the single figures in my rating? Is it unwatchable? I watched this film just about half an hour ago. I finished it, and my sickness has gone. I don't feel quite as sick anymore. This film, Police Academy 7. Now, I've not seen Disaster Movie all the way through, because I watched it for a day, and I skipped 20 minutes or so of it because I couldn't, bear it. I'm sure that's probably worse than this film, and I've not seen films like Jack and Jill, or some of the films that are claimed as the worst films ever made, Movie 43 or anything like that. But of the films I've seen from start to finish, this is the worst film I've ever seen. Now that is special, because there's a few films that I've put in single figures. You'll see why I give this film at the end of the review, but this is the worst film I've seen ever, all the way through. The absolute worst. It is on another level of bad. I didn't quite think it would be this bad. I thought it could be unwatchable, and that's not. I really had the lowest expectations of this film. I really prepared myself, but really nothing can prepare you for this film. If you watch this film, you'll be attacked on it in every sense, by every element of filmmaking, every element of what comedies can be, when they're at their worst. So this film, it's got about 5 of the regular cast returning. Lassard returns, it's a character to return. Lassard, Callahan, Harris, Jones, and Tackleberry. They're the ones, I think, the only ones that actually return from the other films. Everyone else, there was no Hightower, there was no Hooks, there was no Fackler or anyone like that. You've got another character that kind of replaces Mahoney. I can't remember his name. He has his character in this film is awful, and this romance forms. When they go to Russia, it's the worst romance I've ever seen, actually, and. It's just a sort of poor imitation of the Mahoney character. And the film started off with this scene with news reporters, and it was about it was setting up the plot, and it involves this video game that kind of eventually Ron Perlman, it becomes clear that he's using it for some sort of criminal thing, which I won't talk about because the plot. There's no point talking about the plot at all. Watch the film and find out what it is. And I'm not going to sit here talking about plot because it's just it's an excuse to just make a film. You put a plot in, but really this film, there's no sense of storytelling. There's no ideas. There's nothing. This is probably the laziest film I've ever seen. All the way through, but yes, it's involving this video game, which it is absolutely disgraceful. The plot of this film is unbelievable, and comedies, as I've said before, they don't need to have a plot like Inception or something, or it doesn't need to, comedies don't need to have these type of plots. Most films don't, they don't need to have complex plots to be great, but this really is just. It's disgraceful what they do with the story and everything. You've also got Christopher Lee in this film, giving a bad performance. He's been in actually 2 films that are some of my absolute lowest ratings. 1941, the Spielberg film, which I'll review at some point. This is worse though. He's one of my favourite actors, actually, but there's these 2 films in particular that he seems to just be in, and they're some of the worst I've seen. This is definitely worse. As I've said, it's the worst film I've ever seen. And yeah, his performance isn't great at all. But everyone in this film gives a terrible performance, and I mean terrible. Even G.W. Bailey, he's awful. The best performance is Michael Winslow, but it's just because he usually does this sort of wacky stuff. It really wasn't funny after Police Academy 2, I feel, for the most part. And certainly, 4, 5, 6, and this, he's not funny at all. He doesn't give a good performance, but everyone else is worse, I think, because they never usually act like this. He can be wacky and just be, it's Michael Winslow being Jones. It's still bad, but everyone else goes further. Actually, some of the most gross out stuff comes from G.W. Bailey, unfortunately. It's just, there was not a single frame of this film that was good. Literally, once they go to Moscow, and you've got awful stuff at the beginning. The script straight away, probably the worst I've ever seen in a film all the way through. The worst, some of the worst acting I've seen. It's so dumb. The comedy in this film is so dumb. I don't see how it would appeal to anyone. It's offensive, and it's just gross out, over the top, to the point where it is so far away from any sort of reality that it is just stupid. Why make a film like this? It's pointless. And you've got Lassard, some awful comedy from him early on, and just stuff that's just so bad, unbelievably bad. Once they get to Moscow, it all just keeps getting worse and worse and worse, until, one of the blandest, worst fights I've seen, for a final act ever, and that's the ending act. But yes, once they get to Moscow, you've got another barrage of just awful characters thrown in there. You've got some. I'm not even going to name the characters because I don't know their names. I never paid attention to that. I was just shocked. It shocked me, throughout every single scene. These characters, these Russian characters, very, very offensive. But what to expect from these later Police Academies. But they're just so annoying as well. They go so. It's not just awful characters. It's ones that go way beyond that. There's some of the most annoying characters in cinema, and the comedy. They're screaming at the screen, screaming at the actual screen sometimes. Just shouting nonsense. There's not a single line of comedy in this film that is well written, or even written to a level that is average. Nothing in this film works. That's what this film. There's nothing in this film that works on any level whatsoever, and it goes beyond that. It goes to the levels that are so over the top, so gross out humour, so offensive. This such an unenjoyable film, such a dumb film. It made me feel sick. It really did. It's one of them films that you could actually go up and throw up. You could go outside after the film and throw up into a bucket or the toilet. It is that bad. It's cringe-inducing, it's sick-inducing. It makes me feel depressed that this is actually a Police Academy film. None of the others quite reached this level. 5, it was an awful film. This though makes me think. It makes me, lose hope in some comedies. It's so bad, and I gave the first one. If you don't know, I gave the first one a 97%. This film, I'll reveal my rating very soon, and we'll wrap up soon. But yes, the comedy in this film. This is a comedy. The comedy is the worst I've ever seen in a film all the way through. It's just there's no well written stuff, as I've said. There's no groundedness to the comedy. There's no build up to the comedy. The timing is all off. It's lazy comedy, immature, offensive, and just so bad. You can't even laugh at how bad it is because it's so bad. And this is worse than The Room. People say that The Room is the worst film ever made. No, 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 no. Actually, I think The Room's not quite. There's a few films I've seen actually that are worse. But things work better in that film than they do in this film. And yes, the comedy is just so bad. It's so offensive and everything. It attacks your senses. Because of the editing combined with the humour, and the performances. It just every single second of this film is just completely makes me feel sick. The editing is so bad in this film. It's some of the worst I've ever seen. The direction by Adam Mehta is so bad. I don't know how could be called a film. It's that bad. And the cinematography is awful. The way they use the effects and everything. As well, and just the way this film is put together and shot is so bad. There's nothing to praise in terms of filmmaking elements. Every performance is awful, pretty much. The soundtrack actually gets annoying at times. The new stuff they put in there. The way that the action is put together is disgraceful. Die Another Day, it's on that level of action. I gave Die Another Day a 16%. This is a lot worse. It makes that look like a masterpiece, and I never usually say that for films that are that bad, but really, no, it seriously does. And just the way that this film progresses, it's just constantly there's no, nothing that's taken seriously other than is attempted to be the romance. But I could not take it seriously because it was so poorly written and poorly acted. They try with that to make something that, well, they try. That's the one that's not, the humour is not injected quite in there, to assort the senses. with that new guy I was talking about, and a woman that's in Russia. I'm not going to name their names. I don't even know them, and that is just some of the laziest writing, just cringy, awful romance I've ever seen, probably the worst I've ever seen. And that, that just is the only thing that's tried to be taken seriously. Everything else is just an all-out, gags thrown everywhere. That's so bad on every level, And what they do with Captain Harris when he dresses up and he's on the stage, and Tackleberry, it's a disgrace to cinema. This film, I did not think it'd be quite this bad. I was holding out it could be unwatchable. And I've only seen maybe 4 films on that level, since I started documenting my films, which was a couple of years ago. And I'm sure Disaster Movie will be worse than this when I watch it all the way through, and a couple of other films. But really, to call this one of the 50 worst films of all time, which it's been called, I think, it's really praising it, because it's probably one of the. I don't imagine seeing 10 films that. Well, you never know. You never know. Actually, nowadays the comedies, this sort of stuff that's going on. Adam Sandler films and stuff. But yes, there's not much else to say other than this. Prepare yourself for this film if you've not seen it. If you've seen it as a kid or whatever, and you're going to go and rewatch it, again, prepare, because it's so bad. I never really hear anyone saying that this is good. If someone calls this a masterpiece, I usually say it's understandable. No. I'm sorry, you have to explain yourself, because this film, I cannot believe how bad this film is. There's clearly nothing to praise. And I was trying to find something after this film. I was trying to just go back and think, is there anything that isn't unwatchable or awful? What's the point in giving it a 1%? Because no, I can't. I have to give it a 0%. This is unwatchable, but it's you know, unwatchable minus, is what I say. You know, films that are 9 to the 1% are unwatchable, and I've never given that anything on my channel yet. But this is an unwatchable minus. You know, because I thought I made up today. I thought I do 100% pluses and stuff. So why not do a minus for the absolute worst films imaginable? This is a 0%. It's not even a 1. You know, I couldn't even give it that. It's just you know, and it's minus. I call it minus because, you know, this is so bad. Basically, it's not so bad it's good. You know, anything like that. It's just so bad. You know, it makes me lose hope in comedies. You know, this is so. It's just such a shame that Police Academy turned out like this. You know, it makes Police Academy 5 look like a masterpiece, honestly. And I absolutely detested that film, and I hated 4, and I really disliked. You know, I really disliked 6 as well. I liked all the first 3, loved the first one. This one, I'm never watching again. And you know, it's an experience I've still not recovered from. It's that bad. You know, it's unbelievable on every level. You know, whatever you'd think you could make up if you made a film to try to, you know, think how bad can I make a film, and you know, just make everything crap. You know, acting, script, and everything. It'd be hard to beat this film of how bad it is. It's that bad. You know, nothing to praise, but everything I have to. You know, it's not just something that fails on every level. It just attacks on every level. The editing, the direction, cinematography, the gags themselves. All the humour in this film is absolutely disgraceful, you know, unbelievable. You can't watch it really. It's so bad. It's just, honestly, I had to watch it to review it, and of course, and I thought, you know, I can't just put it off, but really I could have easily just walked out and just thrown up. It is so bad. It's sick inducing, and they're not characters, none of them. There's no script. It's just non-existent. The plot is laughable in the sense that it's just so bad, you know. Ron Perlman, maybe the worst villain I've ever seen in the film all the way through, and this is why I never liked him until I saw Drive. And you know, he was really good in Drive, but everything else I've seen him in, and this is one of the things that stuck in my mind. You know, of what Ron Perlman, because he was so bad in this film, unbelievable. The final fight, the sword fight. You know, what is that? What is that? And then the ending, when they're all on the horses. You know, this film is a piece of shit, but really, you know, Police Academy 7, Mission to Moscow. Yeah, 0%. Thanks for watching.